He didn't even wait for me to speak. 1 second the award was in my hand, the next he had the microphone. "She doesn't deserve this. She stole the credit." The words cracked through the ballroom like breaking glass. Hundreds of eyes turned to me, some wide, some hungry. My sister. She just smiled. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I walked off that stage because if they thought I'd lost tonight, they had no idea what I'd give him on his wedding anniversary. The ballroom was drowning in gold light. It poured from the chandelier, splashed across polished marble, and shimmered against champagne flutes, lifted in idle conversations. Every sound felt magnified, the soft hum of the string quartet in the corner, the murmur of expensive cologne and ambition in the air. I stood near the side of the stage, my fingers curled around the cool metal of the award. It was heavier than I expected, and for a moment, I let myself feel its weight. 5 years of 70-hour weeks. 5 years of skipping birthdays, trading vacations for deadlines, carrying projects no one else wanted to touch. And finally, it was mine. The MC's voice rolled through the speakers, his smile directed at me as if we were sharing a private moment in a room of 300. I started forward, each step in my heels crisp against the marble floor. I'd imagined this walk more times than I could count. I thought I'd be smiling, maybe even shaking a little from nerves. Instead, my heartbeat was steady. I felt calm until the shadow moved beside me. It was so quick I barely registered it before his hand was on the microphone. My brother-in-law, perfect hair, perfect tie, perfect smile, sharpened into something ugly, stepped forward like the stage belonged to him. "She doesn't deserve this award. She cheated. Ask her team." The words didn't just land, they detonated. The string quartet faltered, a violin bow scraping against strings. The murmurs swelled into an ugly buzz. Someone at the back laughed under their breath. The spotlight, once warm and flattering, now burned like an interrogation lamp. I could see the front row faces shifting from polite interest to suspicion, like they'd been waiting for someone to give them permission to doubt me. I scanned the crowd and found her, my sister. Arms folded, chin lifted just enough to look detached. But her eyes, they weren't surprised. They were satisfied. I didn't move to take the microphone back. I didn't tell them the truth that I'd led that project from day one, that my so-called team was handpicked and trained by me, that every sleepless night belonged to me alone. Because defending myself now would mean I was already on the defensive. And I don't play games I can't control. The MC stammered, trying to smooth it over, but the damage was done. The award in my hand felt like lead, suddenly more curse than victory. Every whisper in the room dug into me, each one a thread I could either pull until I unraveled, or weave into something much sharper. I walked, past the podium, past him. The crowd parted in awkward silence, some pretending not to watch, others staring like they were front row to my humiliation. As I passed, he leaned in. "Now you know who really wins." I didn't look at him, just smiled, small, deliberate, enough for him to think he'd struck the final blow. Because what he didn't know was that every step I took away from that stage wasn't retreat. It was the first step towards something he would never see coming. The applause didn't follow me. It stayed trapped in that ballroom, dying behind me as the heavy doors swung shut. Outside, the hallway felt colder, the muffled music leaking through the walls, like a distant party I was never meant to attend. I set the award down on a side table. It gleamed under the hallway light, mocking me now, its engraved letters cutting sharper than any insult. For a moment, I just stared at it, not at the name, at the space around it. Empty. Like the applause, like the loyalty I'd once believed I had. I could have gone home. Instead, I walked to the far end of the corridor where the service exit opened to the city's night air. The wind cut through my dress, carrying the faint smell of rain and gasoline from the street below. I leaned against the cold brick, closed my eyes, and it pulled me backward. Flashback. 2 years earlier. Family dinners were always staged like performances. Same dining room, same polished oak table, same roles. My sister, the golden child, arrived late enough to be noticed, but early enough not to be rude. She'd glide in wearing something effortless and expensive, her husband at her side, perfect posture, perfect teeth, that politician's handshake even when greeting family. My parents would light up like someone had turned on the power. Compliments spilling faster than the wine. Her new promotion, his latest investment win, the power couple. Me, I was the supporting act. Asked about my work only so it could be compared to hers. Any achievement of mine somehow lucky, or thanks to the right timing. That night, I remember clearly he'd been telling my father about a client fund he was managing. His voice was smooth, but not too smooth. The kind of tone that makes people trust you without realizing they're being sold something. I watched him pour another glass of wine for himself. Watched the way he avoided specifics when my mother asked about the company's annual reports. Watched how my sister stepped in, changing the subject just enough to move the spotlight back to her. Most people would have missed it, but I make my living reading the gaps, the pauses, the things left unsaid. Back to the present. The city traffic hummed below me. I pulled my phone from my clutch and opened a blank note. Just one line: gala incident. Check personal accounts. Not his, mine. Because if there was one thing I'd learned from both family and business, it was that people who play dirty rarely do it once. They leave fingerprints in places they don't think you'll look. Somewhere inside, the music swelled again, the kind reserved for toasts and cake cutting. I pictured him at the head of a table leaning into my sister as if sharing a secret, and I wondered if she knew what I'd just remembered from that dinner 2 years ago. I doubted it. She'd been too busy basking in the glow of her perfect life to notice the cracks in the glass, the kind that if tapped just right can shatter the whole thing. I didn't go back into the ballroom. I took the service elevator down, the kind that smells like steel and bleach and secrets. The door slid open to an alley lit by a single flickering bulb. City noise pressed in from the street sirens, far off a bus sighing at a red light, someone laughing too loudly on the corner like the night belonged to them. It didn't belong to me. Not yet. I called a car and watched my reflection in the window the whole ride home, face calm, lipstick unbothered, eyes steady. I looked like someone who'd just won an award. Maybe I had, just not the one they thought. My apartment was cold when I walked in. I didn't turn on the lights. I didn't kick off my heels. I set the award on the kitchen counter, opened my laptop, and started a new folder. Gala. Incident. Threads. I'm not a hacker. I don't need to be. People incriminate themselves every day with the little things they forget to lock. First thread, the rumor email. I pulled up our company's internal tip line archive and scanned headers, timestamps, routing paths. Whoever sent the anonymous tip that I'd stolen the project wasn't careful enough to use anything smarter than a personal account. The route bounced through a consumer VPN, sure, but the device ID pinged the same 2 times in 1 week, both matching the nights he'd stayed late at our office to review budgets with my sister, while she waited in the lobby with a magazine she never turned the page on. I traced the device to a service provider he favored, the same one he'd bragged about over dinner once. Military grade, he'd told my father, pleased with himself. Men like him loved 2 things sounding dangerous, and convincing you they were being generous by keeping you safe. Second thread, the fund. 2 years ago, at that family dinner, he'd tossed out a phrase so casually, it almost slipped past me, client liquidity bridge. It sounded legitimate. It usually is, until you look at the paperwork behind it. I searched public filings, loan statements, buried PDFs with fonts that didn't quite match across pages, the kind of details that say someone stapled the truth to a lie and prayed the staple would hold. At 2:17 a.m., I found my first Crack-A-Shell LLC listed as a vendor on a project I knew didn't require outside vendors. The address on the invoice was a mailbox store. The contact number ended in the same 4 digits as his old gym membership. I didn't smile. Not yet. I took a screenshot, saved it, and kept going. I emailed no one. I told no one. I moved like a ghost through my own life. Work, home, laptop glow. The coffee shop on Elm where the barista knows to slide my drink to the end of the counter without calling my name. The library stacks where the security cameras don't quite reach. The little table near the back of my building's laundry room where the Wi-Fi is weak, but the quiet is strong and nobody asks questions. He didn't text me after the gala. My sister didn't either. That's how I knew they thought they'd won. It's easy to gloat when you believe the person you cut down has nowhere to go but down. Third thread payroll. If you want to find a thief, you don't follow their words. You follow their math. I asked a colleague in finance who remembered who stayed until 2 a.m., building the model the execs now called visionary, to send me anonymized vendor summaries from the last 4 quarters for a process audit. It wasn't a lie. It just wasn't the process they cared about. Patterns emerged. Small invoices under approval thresholds. Recurring consultation fees split across entities, with names that looked copied from a list of coastal birds and dead philosophers. He thought he was clever. He was just practiced. By the 3rd night, I had a wall of facts lined up like dominoes. Dates, accounts, signatures that drifted a little when the whiskey did. His name wasn't on everything. It didn't have to be. At 3:41 a.m., I stood barefoot in the kitchen, the tile cold under my feet, the city a soft electric hum outside, and I realized something simple and ugly he'd never needed to ruin me to win. He did it because he could, because humiliation is a currency in certain families, and he knew exactly how much mine would pay. I closed my laptop and finally turned on the lights. The award on the counter caught it and threw a thin stripe of gold across the room. I didn't move it. Let it sit there. Let it watch. The next day I went to work like nothing had happened. I answered emails. I gave notes on a slide deck. I sat in a meeting where someone used my idea and credited the room. I said nothing. People hate silence. It makes them confess just to fill it. He breezed past my desk at noon cologne first. "Tough night," he said low enough to pass as concern if anyone was listening. "Hope you're not taking it personally." I met his eyes. Calm. Empty. "Congratulations," I said. For what he smiled. For reminding me who you are. He blinked once. Just once. Then he kept walking. That evening I took a different route home and stopped at a notary 2 blocks from the river. The woman behind the desk looked tired the way only people who see other people's secrets all day can look. I slid documents across screenshots, certification logs, vendor matches. She stamped what she could stamp and told me to keep backups. "Fireproof box," she said. And the cloud. People burn what they regret. On the way out, it started to rain, the kind that smells like metal on concrete. I didn't run. I let it darken my coat and chill my skin until I felt awake again. 4th thread is timeline. The night he accused me, he'd been at the office early. He's not an early person. He's the kind who arrives 10 minutes late and calls it leadership. But that morning, the log showed his badge entering the executive floor at 6:12 a.m. The tip-line email was sent at 6:23. He wanted a crowd ready before the curtains rose. I built a timeline that didn't accuse. It just aligned. Access logs. Email stamps, vendor payouts, a transfer that hit at 11:58 p.m., so it wouldn't land on the next day's report. A message to my sister at 12:03 a.m., all set. "You looked beautiful tonight." I didn't read it twice. By the end of the week, I had enough to light a match. I didn't. I waited. Revenge wants spectacle. Justice wants timing. Their wedding anniversary was circled on a calendar my mother mails out every year, the one with everyone's birthdays and holidays neatly printed like she can spreadsheet a family into loving each other. I kept that calendar on my fridge out of habit. Now it had a purpose. I spent the night before their party printing, not at home, not at work, at a copy shop on the edge of downtown where nobody knows my name and everyone minds their own business. 2 sets went into sealed envelopes, one for the board, one for compliance. A third went into a plain manila folder I slipped into a gift bag that matched their decor theme from last year, white and gold, like innocence and arrogance. I slept for 3 hours. Woke up calm. On the day of I dressed in black, not dramatic, neutral, the kind you can disappear in. I didn't bring the award. I didn't bring anyone's permission. When I arrived, the restaurant smelled like butter and candle smoke. Waiters moved like choreography. My sister sparkled. He glowed. People hugged me like they were sorry for some unnamed thing and happy for another. The world is built on people pretending they don't see what they're looking directly at. He raised a glass. To the woman who makes everything I do possible, he said, and the room made that collective soft sound groups make when they want to be part of something lovely. I waited until the laughter settled, until the phones came out for photos. Then I handed him the bag. For you, I said. He peeked inside, confused at the plain folder, and I watched the confusion travel, from curiosity to recognition to fear. I didn't stay for the call from the board, or the compliance ping, or the way my sister's smile would harden and fracture when the words investigation and embezzlement finally arrived at her table. I stepped outside into the late sun and breathed in the city like it was new. Behind me, through the glass, someone's phone lit up. Then another. Then another. I didn't turn around. You can always tell when bad news lands. It doesn't make a sound at first. It just changes the air. The restaurant's laughter thinned like someone had pulled it through a filter. Forks slowed halfway to mouths. People started smiling with only the bottom half of their faces while their eyes stayed busy scanning phones. I'd already crossed the street by the time I heard my sister's voice loud enough to be polite, sharp enough to cut glass. This is ridiculous. This is the door shut behind me before I heard the rest. I didn't need to. The board moved fast. It wasn't about morality, it never is. It was about risk. Risk in headlines, in shareholder calls and quarterly reports. By Monday, he was on leave pending internal review. By Wednesday, his office keycard stopped working. By Friday, the parking space with his nameplate was empty. My sister texted me once. No hello, no preamble, just, what did you do? I didn't answer. I deleted it without opening. I knew what she thought she wanted from me, a confession she could twist into an attack. The thing she didn't understand was that silence is also a statement, one you can't misquote. Still, she tried. My mother called a week later, her voice tight with that particular strain of loyalty that's less about love and more about maintaining the family script. Your sister's marriage is falling apart, she said, like it was my job to fix it. I let her finish her sentence, then spoke slowly enough to make each word count. You think I'm just a name on paper. I smiled. I was the paper. She didn't respond right away. Then you've changed. No, I said. I've stopped playing the part you wrote for me. Click. The thing about burning a bridge is that people think it's the end of the road. It's not. It's just the end of theirs. Revenge stories always end the same way in movies, one big explosive climax. But in real life, the satisfying part comes after the noise dies down. 3 months passed. Winter slid into spring, and with it the news cycle shifted. New scandals, new names. His wasn't one of them anymore, because by then it had become something worse. A whisper. The kind people lower their voices for the kind no one writes down because everyone already knows. He tried to land another executive position. I know, because I made sure to be 2 steps ahead. Recruiters don't always check references, but they do check court filings. And when those filings are forwarded anonymously, it tends to slow things down. My sister stopped posting pictures of them together. The curated smiles and matching champagne glasses disappeared. Her captions got vaguer quotes about finding yourself and new beginnings. When I heard she'd moved back in with my parents, I didn't feel triumph, just confirmation. As for me, I stayed in the city. My work-doubled promotion came not with ceremony this time, but with quiet acknowledgement in a closed-door meeting, the kind of recognition that actually lasts. Sometimes I'd pass the restaurant where that night started. They changed the menu, painted the walls a lighter color, tried to make it fresh, but the bones were the same. I'd walk past feeling the weightless kind of calm you only get when you've outgrown a place completely. People ask if I ever spoke to him again. The truth is, I didn't need to. Silence wasn't just my revenge, it was my freedom. And once you've had both, you never go back. Time does something strange after you cut people out. At first it moves fast days, flipping like pages you can't put down. Then it slows, stretching into a kind of stillness you didn't know you needed. I stopped checking their socials, stopped wondering if they were talking about me, because the truth was, whether they were cursing my name or pretending I didn't exist, it was still the same thing. They were on the outside now, and I was never letting them back in. One evening, I was leaving the office late. The streets were quiet except for the low hum of a delivery truck idling by the curb. I caught my reflection in the glass doors, hair pulled back, shoulders straight, the faintest shadow of a smile. Not the person who'd stood frozen on that gala stage. When I got home, there was an envelope in my mailbox. No return address. My name written in careful block letters. Inside, one photograph. It was the three of them, my parents, my sister, and him, taken years ago. The edges were frayed like it had been torn from a frame. Across the back, in handwriting I didn't recognize, "You were right." I turned it over again, studying their faces. They were younger, all of them smiling like nothing could touch them. I set it on the counter, poured myself a drink, and let the glass catch the city lights through my window. Some people call that closure. I call it the first chapter of living on my own terms, because in my world, endings are just the part where you start telling the story differently. Some betrayals cut deep, but silence carves deeper. If you've ever been underestimated, erased, or pushed aside, you know exactly what I mean. Tell me, what would you have done if it were you? Drop your story in the comments. I read them all. And if you want more truths people never thought I'd tell, hit subscribe, because some endings are only the beginning.